Did Rey Mysterio retire? Will we see Dominic in the ring? And who did Apollo Crews choose to face for the United States Championship? I'm Hayden from the Broforce, and this is your Raw Review.
Hey, this is Angel Garza from WWE, and you are watching the Broforce.
We open up Raw this week with the Seth Rollins promo. He comes out and says Rey isn't going to bring himself to announce his own retirement because he's too humble to call himself a legend. So Seth says it's his job as a leader to appreciate Rey Mysterio and do this for him. He shows a video package highlighting Rey Mysterio's illustrious career, but of course it ends with the footage from weeks ago of Rollins shoving Rey's eye into the stairs because Rollins thinks that's his greatest achievement, him being a sacrifice for Rollins. And then Alistair Black comes down and starts beating up Rollins. When we come back from commercial, we go into the match that was announced earlier in the week. Alistair Black versus Seth Rollins. Alistair trips Seth early on and he rolls out and collects himself with Murphy in Theory. Rollins drop kicks Alistair when he goes to go back into the ring, and Rollins later in the match hits a suicide dive. When they both get back into the ring, they have a series of reversals until Alistair roundhouse kicks Seth, but Alistair gets thrown out and Murphy and Theory go towards him, but Humberto Carrillo's music hits, and he comes out with the chair. We come back from commercial to see Seth working over Alistair. Alistair dodges the knee to make a comeback, and then after finally 3 attempts, this was the 3rd attempt, he finally hits the deadlift German that he's been trying to hit all match, covers, but it's just a 2 count. Alistair hits a moonsault on Seth Rollins onto the outside. We come back from commercial and Rollins reverses a superplex and hits a frog splash, but Alistair kicks out at 2. Theory and Murphy distract Alistair when he goes for a black mass. Carrillo tries to make the save but gets beaten down. Alistair kicks out of a roll-up from Seth and then rolls Seth up himself for the win, but Murphy and Theory come back into the ring and them and Seth beat up Alistair and Humberto, and Seth curb stomps Humberto to close basically the match. We have an Angel Garza interview backstage with his lover, Charlie Caruso. Let's call a spade here. Garza tells Zelina that he can do the talking with this one. He says everything is fair in Love and War. Yet again, compares wrestling to sex. Then Garza gives Charlie a rose, but Zelina comes back into frame and destroys the rose, rips it up, and Charlie Caruso looks very offended. Shawn Michaels is here to talk about the greatest wrestling match ever. Randy Orton versus Edge. It won't be the greatest match at Backlash, probably. And basically, just because Flair last week said Orton was going to win, this week Shawn's going to say that Edge is going to win. Backstage, Lana is annoying MVP. Lana says MVP is just using Lashley to revive his washed-up career. MVP says that couldn't be farther from the truth, but if that was, wouldn't that make 2 of us? Lana slaps him and walks away as MVP just smirks. Normally, I don't talk about recap packages on the reviews, but Alistair versus Seth and all that stuff happened 20 minutes before this, and we get a full-blown multi-minute video package recapping it. Not just the commentators talking over some replays, a full-blown video package for something we saw 20 minutes ago. In the ring, Apollo Crews comes out to choose his opponent, who will defend his United States Championship against for the first time. He chooses Kevin Owens. Owens thinks it's out of pity, but then Apollo confirms with him that it's out of respect. And Owens says if it's out of respect, he feels bad that Apollo's reign is going to be a short one. Owens hits a series of moves in the beginning of the match, ending with the senton bomb from the top, and it was a really good near fall. I thought they were just going to completely squash Apollo here, have Owens get the pelt, and that would have been really sad. I thought maybe Apollo was going to turn after it or something, but no, it was just a near fall. Owens goes for the gut kick to hit the stunner, but inadvertently low blows Apollo. Then Apollo, after selling it, just completely comes back, and he may have been baiting Owens, potentially. They just start throwing hands, and they both topple out of the ring, and are just still trading hands on the outside. And when we come back from commercial, they're still trading hands in the ring. Crews reverses a pop-up powerbomb into an enziguri, hits a standing moonsault for just a 2 count, but then Garza and Andrade come out and attack both of them, ending the match in a double disqualification. When we come back from commercial, through wrestling logic, it's Garza and Andrade versus Owens and Apollo. Garza hits a mid-air dropkick on Apollo and throws his pants at Kevin Owens, who is on the apron. The match is all Garza and Andrade for a while until Owens goes to make a hot tag. It's definitely teased as a hot tag, but he doesn't get any offense in because Garza immediately tags out and pops him in the face. Then Andrade works down Owen. Owens finally gets in some offense and then hits the senton. He goes for the cannonball, but Garza distracts him, giving Andrade the control back. Apollo reverses the three amigos to gain some control. Garza takes down Owens on the outside. Andrade tries to use the ropes for a roll-up victory over Apollo, but Apollo kicks out and hits the toss-up powerbomb for the win. He has pinned Andrade for the third time. I imagine this will lead to a match at Backlash, most likely. We have an Asuka interview. She says she's always better and Charlotte always stays the same and that the Empress never bows down, and she dances off the screen while humming her own theme music. We move on to the highlight of the night. It is bowling. The Street Profits do not know what bowling shoes are when they are handed them. The Viking Raiders try to check a bowling ball like you do a basketball by throwing it in Dawkins' stomach. The Viking Raiders get great shots in this. They keep getting strikes and spares and just do it amazing. And the Street Profits get gutter balls or maybe 1 or 2 pins every time. The Viking Raiders buy drinks, but it ends up being goat's milk that the Street Profits spit all over the floor. Ford is holding a ball but drops it and it lands on Dawkins' foot. Ivar goes to get the ball out of the dispenser that won't come out, but he pulls out, you guessed it, a turkey leg. They hit a bunch of trick shots, the Viking Raiders do, and then Ivar sees an ad on one of the bowling screens say about being hungry and having snacks. So he goes and raids the fridge in the kitchen but gets kicked out of the kitchen. But don't worry, they're left off the hook because Ivar's cute, but Eric, not so much. Eric gets a strike by chucking the ball over a lane onto another lane, which apparently counts in bowling now. The Street Profits are down by a lot, like down by 60, I think it was. And they call for the disco lights to be turned on, and they are suddenly amazing, getting strikes and spares, and the Viking Raiders are the ones getting the gutter balls. But eventually Eric slides down Ivar while he's holding a ball, gets down all the pins, and picks up the win by 1 point. The anything you can do, I can do better challenge is now 2-2. Both teams are tied with their competitions. We have Billie Kay versus Nikki Cross, because we'll probably get this match at Backlash, provided Sasha and Bayley don't win the women's tag team titles on SmackDown. Cross slams Billie into all of the top turnbuckles, and then Billie hits a big boot, which apparently is called the Shades of K, according to commentary, but it just gets a 2 count. Billie taunts Cross and smacks the top of her head, but this just makes Cross angry, giving her fuel to make a comeback, then she hits a cross body. Billie moves out of the way of a top rope cross body, but hits a sit-out Uranagi thing to pick up the victory here. Billie Cross has defeated one half of the women's tag team champions, which I'm sure means we'll probably get this match at Backlash. We have a Drew McIntyre interview, and McIntyre says he's beaten 7 superstars, and MVP can be lucky number 8 if he wants to be. Rey Mysterio speaks from his home. Rey says he doesn't know if he's going to retire. Dominic comes in and says that someone from this family, the Mysterio family, not my family, I don't plan on fighting Seth Rollins, says somebody from the Mysterio family needs to beat Seth. Rey knows what he's talking about and tries to talk him out of it. After Rey leaves, Dominic stays and says an eye for an eye to Seth Rollins. I think they might actually start pulling the trigger on Dominic in the ring. I think either 2 things are going to happen. Either he's just going to lose to Seth, that's it, then it sets up Rey versus Seth, or he's going to join Seth to set up Rey versus Dominic, because Rey said he wants to hand down the mask to Dominic whenever he retires. We have a Nia Jax promo, and Nia plays the victim card, saying she's been repeatedly attacked by Asuka and Kairi 2-on-1. She basically mocks them for being Japanese, and now, with what's going on in the world, isn't the best time for racism insults in wrestling. She says Asuka doesn't deserve the belt because Becky just handed it to her, and this promo was really bad, but it's Nia Jax, so what do you expect? We see Gronk at his house doing some TikTok dance, and then Truth is described as a house worker, and Truth rolls him up, getting back his 24/7 championship, and it's revealed after Raw goes off the air later in the night that Gronk has been released by WWE. He activated his release clause in his contract, and now he's just gone. He was there for about a month, maybe 2. That has to be the shortest time anybody has been under contract with WWE. Let me know if I'm wrong. We have Nia Jax versus Kairi, but you're not here to hear me talk about this match, are you? You're here to hear me talk about the injury that Nia Jax caused Kairi Sane. This is the second time in the span of roughly a month that Nia Jax has injured Kairi Sane. First time with that buckle bomb where Kairi was screaming at her that she's not ready, but she did it anyway. And now this, it appears that maybe it wasn't 100% Nia's fault, but I'm not a wrestler, so I can't really claim that. But we saw from Brian Alvarez that an anonymous wrestler source messaged him and said that Nia Jax needs to be effing fired and that this was 1000% her fault. But I don't think she necessarily needs fired or anything, but she can't stay on the main roster. She should not. They need to write her out of this women's title match, because if they're not careful, she's going to injure Asuka and they're going to be out of a women's champion. She needs to go back down, not even to NXT. She shouldn't be trusted to wrestle people yet. She needs to go to the Performance Center and train for quite a while until she learns how to safely work. When they get back in the ring after Nia slams Kairi into the stairs to cut her open, which was the injury. This was heavily edited, of course. Nia hits the leg drop. 1, 2, 3. Nia picks up the win, but that's that injury, man. It's hard not to think about that when you think about this match. We have a Randy Orton promo in a dimly lit room, Orton's favorite place to cut promos. Orton says he thinks Flair is the greatest to ever do it, and Flair and Edge both have said he's the greatest to ever lace up a pair of boots. Orton admits he doesn't care, has been phoning it in for 20 years and still accomplished more than Edge or anyone in the locker room. He says Edge had to work his way to the top, and all he had to do was be Randy Orton. We have a Charlotte Flair promo. Whoopee! More Charlotte Flair. As you know, that's what I love on my wrestling. A lot of Charlotte Flair. Charlotte says she's rooting for everyone in the Performance Center that's in the crowd to all be the next Rhea Ripley, but they should all bow down to her just like Asuka has before. She acknowledges Asuka's accomplishments and says she's been a tag team title champion. I assume that was a botch, and she doesn't actually think it's called the Tag Team Title Championship. We have Asuka versus Charlotte in a champion versus champion match. Asuka goes for the Asuka lock early, but Charlotte reverses it. A theme for this match. Charlotte starts reminding Asuka of all the times she's beaten her. Charlotte drops a knee on the back of Asuka's knee and starts working it over for a bit. Charlotte starts to taunt Asuka, but it just makes Asuka angry. Charlotte kicks the knee in order to take Asuka back down. Asuka gets a roundhouse kick to take control back. Asuka locks in an armbar, but Charlotte turns into her terrible Boston Crab. Then Charlotte turns a knee bar into a deadlift German, and then she turns a triangle into a powerbomb. Boots Asuka out of the ring. Nia comes out in Asuka's mask and makeup. Asuka's distracted and gets counted out, and that's the match. I'm sure this match was fine, but it's really hard. Like, really, really hard to enjoy anything that Charlotte does when she is overexposed this much. Because she could have a 5-star classic anytime, but we've seen her so much that everything she does is boring. Because it's just tired of seeing her. Like, that triple threat on Sunday is going to be phenomenal. But in the back of my head, I'm so tired of seeing Charlotte Flair that I'm probably not going to care. Unless somebody that isn't Charlotte Flair wins. And spoiler for our prediction video, I don't see that happening. Lana is interviewed backstage, and she says Lashley said not to come out during his matches, but he didn't say anything about MVP's matches. We have Drew McIntyre versus MVP. You know this match is going to get short when there's 5 minutes left of Raw. Lana predictably comes down. Lashley is very upset, and Drew finds this humorous. McIntyre dominates MVP until Lashley distracts him. MVP hits a boot in the corner, kind of like a haluva kick sort of thing, but McIntyre kicks out at 1. McIntyre quickly gets control back. Drew goes for the Claymore, but Lashley pulls MVP out of the ring. So Drew just does a plancha on to both of them. Then Drew hits a Claymore. Drew picks up the win. Lashley locks in the full Nelson, and Raw ends very abruptly. As soon as he locks in the full Nelson, pretty much Drew backs him into the corner, and then Raw just cuts out middle of Tom Phillips talking. I assume it's so they didn't have to air Drew McIntyre breaking out of the full Nelson because they don't want that to happen yet. I assume they're saving that for Backlash. Overall, this Raw this week was pretty It wasn't a terrible show, but it definitely wasn't good. It felt very unimportant. Like you didn't need to see this Raw. You could have missed it and been completely fine. I'd say I'd probably give it a 5 out of 10. It was just a middle of the road meh. Raw, it was fine. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't good. Yeah, middle of the road, 5 sounds good. That's all for this week's Raw review. Stay tuned for all of our weekly reviews. Next week, the Raw review will be coming out on Tuesday again. It came out on Wednesday this week in honor of Black Tuesday to support the Black Lives Matter movement. A great cause that if you go down to the description, I have a link to blacklivesmatter.com that I encourage you to click on and see how you can help this cause and just try. We gotta try to change the world. Things have to be different. Normally I'd plug all of our upcoming stuff, but I think it's best to talk about this issue. I'm sure you all know what has happened by now. Just know that we fully support this movement and go to the description, blacklivesmatter.com, and see how you can help.